This video covers tips on teaching the clarinet. So just like with the flute, on day one, whenever the kids walk through the door, first thing you want to do is pass out the instruments to them that they've rented from the shop. Some of the kids are going to come in with instruments of their own. Hopefully you've checked them beforehand. If you haven't, then get those instruments from the kids. Have a mouthpiece of your own so that you can use it, but then try out each one of the clarinets and make sure that everything's working properly. You don't want to start camp with a clarinet that's not working. Have some extra clarinets on hand in case they aren't working, or in case somebody walks in who doesn't have a clarinet. First thing we're going to do, like always, is we're going to show which end of the case is up. So you've got your label here, no label on the bottom. For most cases, the label goes up. If there's no label, you can look and see what the tag says and make sure the letters are up, or if they don't have that, just know that the latch is open here on the top side, and the top side of the case is thinner than the bottom side of the case. Make sure that the kids know which side's up. I always have them put the clarinet on the floor to open it. Since the camera can't see that, I'm going to put it in my lap. The lap's a no-no, it will fall. In fact, I'm going to set this over here. So, very first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about putting the reed on the mouthpiece. I use Rico 2s. Find that the 2 is easy for the kids to blow through. Some of the kids struggle with the 2.5, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of teachers that do use a 2.5, and that's fine. I don't like the 1.5. I find that they sound way too honky. You may think that about the 2 as well, but this is what I use. I explain that the reed works better when it's wet, so we have the kids wet it down. Sometimes for those of you that aren't reed players, you may not know this. If you try putting on a dry reed and putting it on there, even somebody like me who plays saxophone professionally, it's going to sound really honky or airy. It may not get much noise at all. You got to wet it down. Makes a world of difference. The reed placement is the most important thing about tone production. If the kid has the reed in the wrong spot, it's not going to sound good, and it's going to be almost impossible to make a noise in some cases. Every lesson, for the first 5 lessons of camp, and even when school starts, I always start the lesson by checking to see if the reed is in the right place. If not, then you may as well not even have the lesson. The kids are going to struggle with it. And let the kids know that. Let them know that if it's in the wrong spot, it's not going to work right. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. And I talk about how the tip of the reed is really thin and it's easy to break it. So the way I do it is I tell them that there is a flat side to this reed and there is a rounded side. And the mouthpiece itself has a rounded side and a flat side. You want to match up the 2 flat sides like that and show them that. You're going to have some kids who are trying to stick the reed inside here. I see that every year. So stop that ahead of time and show them that reed needs to be lined up just as close as possible with the tip of the mouthpiece. In fact, they should be able to put their push it down with their finger, and you should see a hairline of black, the mouthpiece, a hairline of black over the top. If you can't see that hairline, it's up too high. If you can see more than a hairline, it's down too low. You may not know this, but there's actually a ridge right here. You can take a mouthpiece and look at that. The tip of the reed needs to be centered there on that ridge, or at least over the ridge, because that's where it's going to open and close and vibrate. If it's not on over that ridge, you're not going to get a good seal. Okay, the ligature. You can explain this, but the kids aren't going to get it right at first. This is a lot to take in. The ligature has a big end and it's got a little end. And I show them, if you put the little end on first, it's not going to go down. And then what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to loosen it up to the point where it will go down, and it's not going to work. They're actually going to end up taking the screws out. Make sure, and be watching, that kids aren't unscrewing it to the point that the screws coming out. That'll just waste time. So what I tell them is, whenever they put this on there, the screws are going to be facing towards the right. That is not 100% of the time. I want you to be aware of this. I've been teaching 13 years. I had one girl come in those 13 years who had a ligature that was backwards, and I thought maybe the screws were just in the wrong spot, so I tried to take them out and put them in the other way. They wouldn't go in. It was a cheap ligature that was backwards, and for her, the screws had to be on the left-hand side. I've also seen some really fancy professional models. The kids probably aren't going to have those, where the screws are going to the left-hand side. So real cheap, real expensive, that might happen. 99.9% of the time though, ligature to the right, okay? And if in doubt, big end goes on first. So, we've put the reed there. We tell them to be really careful when they do this or else they're gonna chip the reed. We're gonna slide that down. Now you're probably gonna have to help the kids the first time on this to make sure that the reed, the screws right here are loose enough that it will go down far enough. Hold it in place with a thumb. And then we're going to tighten it up. It should be tight enough that it's the reed's not going to move around on there if you try moving it. And I'll show you this. You want to make sure that the ligature is down past the little U right here. So I've dropped it down past there. Some of the kids won't have it down far enough, and then you have to loosen up those screws and push it down farther. And you can also see what I mean by a hairline of black over the top of that. I want to make sure that it looks like that. Alright, after that, I have the kids take it apart. I have them put it back together again on their own just to make sure they can. That'll take a while. That seems to be the most complicated part. By the way, this whole first lesson, we're learning how to put the instrument together. That's why this lesson's longer, especially if you have a lot of clarinets. It'll take the entire hour to figure out how to put the instrument together. I tell them that's the hardest part about playing the clarinet, putting it together. Their assignment for this lesson is going to be to go home, practice taking it apart, putting it together, so when they come to their second lesson, they're going to be able to put it together before class starts, and then we can start learning how to play it. So, we've got this together. Now we're going to talk about putting the clarinet together. We're going to talk about the corks, and we're going to point out that everybody has cork grease. I actually make sure ahead of time that everybody has cork grease in their cases. I also make sure that everybody has strength 2 reeds in their cases. Sometimes the shop is the one that has, and I don't like that. And I'm going to show them how to put the cork grease on. For those of you that don't know, you're going to have just a little bit of cork grease right there, poking up over the top. Going to do that with it. Then we're going to take our fingers and we're going to rub it in. Then we want to make sure that we have some Kleenexes, which I don't. So I'm going to have some sticky hands for the rest of this video. Have Kleenexes ready. They're going to want that so that they can wipe off their fingers when they're done. I have nothing. Okay. Have them do that to all the corks. After they've done that, cork grease is wonderful stuff. Smells like mint. After they've done that, we're going to put it together. I have them get the longest piece first, which is this piece here. Now, I tell them that whenever they put it together, they want to be careful that they're not going to bend the rods. So, we have to figure out where to put our fingers so that that's not going to happen. You've got this thumb rest right here, and I have them put it like this underneath their hand, and then wrap the fingers around onto those 3 buttons. The kids can pretty well figure that out on their own. And that way they're not grabbing a hold of any rods. Put this on, twist while you push. Kids that have brand new instruments, this is going to be hard. They aren't going to be able to get it right at first. Be sure and tell them that that's not going to be the case after a couple of weeks, because after a couple of weeks time it's going to go on a little easier. They might have to have their parents help them right at first putting these together. You'll see kids that are doing this, trying to get them to go on. You'll see all kinds of stuff. But just know that that will get easier over the course of a couple lessons. In fact, most people come to the second lesson and that's not a problem anymore. Then we're going to take the shorter piece and we're going to show them that when they put this on, there is a little key right there and a little key right here underneath all these keys that line up with each other. And we're going to make sure that they get those lined up. If they do it right, the buttons are all in line with each other. You can check that. And of course you have your barrel. Put this on, it helps to twist while you push it on. This next part, there's 2 different ways they can do it. And I show both ways. So they've already got their mouthpiece with the reed on it. Some kids are going to have a problem with this because they're going to go to put their mouthpiece on and their ligature is going to come off while they're doing that, and the reed's going to go crooked. That's a struggle. So as they're doing this, I show them there is another way to put the reed on. In fact, it's the way that I prefer, and then they can take their pick. And that would be put the instrument together with no reeding, and then you can just keep the clarinet like this on your chair. And personally, as a saxophone player, this is the way I do it, and I think a lot of you clarinet players do it the same way. Okay, and then just tell the kids they can take their pick. They'll pick what's easiest for them. Alright, so they got the clarinet together. The next step is to make sure they know how to do this when they get home. So, we're going to have them take it back apart. I failed to mention this. Whenever I'm first showing them how to put the reed on at the beginning, I also show them how to put the reed back inside the case, because remember I said that we disassemble it, put it back together, and we talk about how the tip goes in first, the flat side sets on the bottom here, the bottom is a little bigger, and make sure you don't push it in too far. If you push it in too far, it's going to get stuck in there, and what I do then is I will get like a pencil or something and push it out the other side and pull it out. So don't push it in too far or you're going to have problems. Alright, have the kids take the clarinet apart, have them put it back in the case, show them that they can look at the indentations and see where the parts go, shut the case. If they have to force the case shut, they haven't put something in correctly. They need to make sure they don't force the case shut or they're going to ruin it. Open it back up, find what they put in the wrong spot, close it back up, latch it up, and then tell them that this is going to be their assignment, to put this together and take it apart when they get home, and I want to make sure that they know how to do this. So have them do it again. This time, try to give them as little direction as possible, because you want to see if they can do it at home by themselves. So watch as they do it. They'll struggle to remember the order and everything. This is a lot of stuff to take in. Give them just little pointers as you go along, and they'll remember. They'll put it together, take it apart. Likely that's going to be the end of your hour right there, and just tell them to go home and practice that. So that gets us to lesson 2. Lesson 2, they put it together on their own. You're going to go through, you're going to make sure that everybody's reed's in the right spot. One thing I do in lesson 1 once they finally get it together is I have them put their right thumb underneath here, and I show them that it's the thumbnail that goes directly beneath the thumb rest. Some of the kids are going to try to do that, and that causes problems later on when you're trying to push the buttons down. They're not going to realize that at first, so you got to stress it to them. Underneath the thumbnail. And then I'll have them grab a hold up here with their left hand, and we'll play just an open G. And I talk to the kids about sitting on the front of their chair, so scooting forward so their back's not on the chair. Some of the kids, their feet aren't going to touch the floor. If they scoot farther ahead in their chair, it helps their feet to touch the floor. And we talk about how the knees are apart, the head is up, and this goes in your mouth like this, and it's not straight out, it's kind of at an angle. Now I've pre-tested all of the kids ahead of time, and found that they were able to make this noise on the clarinet. It's going to be a little rough for them at first trying to do it on their own. If that's the case, what I do is just like I did when I tested them, and you can watch my band recruitment video to see how I did that with the kids. I turn that around backwards, and I'll just have the kids stand up with their hands down their sides and their head straight up. Tell them not to do this with their head, because they're going to want to try to do that, because it's going to feel weird coming out at an angle. Put it in their mouth, have them put their bottom lip over their bottom teeth just a little bit, just so the red part of the lip is over the teeth. And then you're going to have them put that reed on top of the bottom lip. Make sure you tell them to put their top teeth down, like they're biting it with their top teeth. And you can feel, if you can't see it, you can actually feel it as you're holding it, because you'll feel the teeth go down on top of it. You'll know if they're doing it or not. And you can also wiggle it a little bit. If you can do this with it, they don't have their top teeth on it. And then I have them kind of grip it with the corners of their mouth, just like you're saying, okay, that closes these corners off. Some of the kids are going to blow air out the sides, like that, so they need to tighten up the corners, like ooh. Alright, so I've turned it around backwards, I've put it in their mouth. They're going to blow, you might get this sound, that means you don't have enough in their mouth. Put it in a little farther, that means you have too much in their mouth. Have them keep blowing, try it a couple times. Find the right spot where they're able to make the noise. We'll see what it feels like, and then you can turn it back around and have them do it themselves. Okay, they're also going to practice that after their first lesson. All right, lesson 2. I'm going to review posture, sitting up tall, like you're standing from the waist up, so that if I were to take a picture of you from here up, I wouldn't be able to tell if you're standing or sitting, kind of like with the marching band. I'm going to talk about finger numbers, which is really easy. You got your thumb, 1, 2, and 3. That comes in handy later whenever you're trying to say that the fingering for this is thumb 1 and 2, and they know what you're talking about. So 1, 2, 3, that's easy. And then we're going to learn 5 notes by rote, C, D, E, F, G. I actually start with G because there's no fingers. No fingers is easier than adding fingers. We're going to add the thumb first. Then we're going to add the first finger. And we're going to go slowly at this until everybody's able to play it really well. You're going to start having problems whenever people add their first finger, and the reason is they're not used to this, and their finger's not completely covering the hole. You can actually look and see that their finger is not all the way over the hole. It's going to do that. So you might need to even physically get there and move their finger onto that hole. As they add more fingers, it's going to get harder and harder because they have more fingers to cover on holes, and you can see that happen in the videos. The hardest one is C, and I don't tell the kids this, the hardest one, but you need to know it's the hardest one, because these little kids with little hands, this finger right here doesn't go down low enough. So I always tell them to stretch their fingers out like that, and usually that's enough to get them to be able to cover the C. You'll have a few kids that really struggle with the C right at first. Just have them keep on practicing it, have them remember to get those fingers over the holes. They can check and see if their finger's completely over the holes by gripping it really tight, and then looking, and they will see that they have little rings, complete circles on their fingers. Unless they have it in the wrong spot, they'll just have a half circle. Okay, so that's a way to check. Or they can look in a mirror. A mirror is good. In fact, I keep a mirror at my desk for embouchure purposes, and also for clarinets to see if the fingers are completely over the hole. All right, so we've done that, and I'm going to jump right into tonguing at that point. Once they can play those 5 notes, we're going to review, for me, that it's exactly like how they learned how to tongue on the recorder in elementary school. So I'm lucky that my elementary school teachers have taught that. They already know how it goes. Ta, 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 ta. And for a lot of kids, just showing them that is going to be enough to get them to be able to do it. For other kids, that won't be quite enough. But you tell them that that part of the tongue right there is going to come up and hit the reed, just like you're saying ta. Ta, 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 and then just have them practice doing that. Some of the kids are going to do this. And you say, can you feel your tongue touching the reed? And obviously the answer is going to be no. So you're going to say, okay, you need to feel your tongue, the tip of your tongue touching the tip of the reed. Which, by the way, from a reed perspective, from a reed player's perspective, that is not entirely true, but it does help to say that to the kids. It helps get the point across. It's not the tip of the tongue that I use on my saxophone. It's actually about right here on the tongue, like that. But as long as the kids aren't doing this, if they're saying ta, that should get the point across. So I still say tip of the tongue on the tip of the reed. All right, so we tongue 4 notes on each one of these pitches. And then on the D here, all the way up to the G. If you wait till longer to teach the tonguing, you're going to have a big struggle with it. Do it right at first. I'm going to show them how to do the flashcards, just the ones that say the set one where it just says C, and I have to figure out where the C is. You're going to find that these clarinets fly. They're going to go faster than any other group that you have. For about half the year, actually, 3/4 of the year, until they hit the upper register, and then they're going to come to a grinding halt. But during band camp, your clarinets will get much farther than everybody else. It's a lot easier. They're just doing this, and it's a lot like a recorder. All right. At this point, we have the class hasn't been going on very long, so we've got more time here. You can show them the staff and where the notes are on the staff, and talk about the different pitches that we're going to be playing. And go ahead and start in the Essential Elements book. You play the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It shows what each one of those 5 notes look like, and you can practice playing them. And you're probably going to still have a little bit of extra time at the end of class, so you start going from the beginning. Start at 1 and go as far as you can. Lesson 3, we're going to learn about flashcard set 2, so they can start now trying to memorize what the different letter names look like on the staff. And I'm going to show them how to do the speed drill that we're going to be doing in the next lesson. And then we're going to just start back on the Essential Elements book, and we're going to go as far as we can. probably even up to a number 11. Clarinets have some extra time since they're going so fast that people want to play some solos. They like doing that, just to have people play a few measures. Or you can even have somebody play one measure and have the next person play the next measure. However you want to do it, be creative with it. But they're going to get pretty far. In fact, they're going to get so far pretty quickly that they're going to get to the point where there aren't letters in the book, which is around number 11 or 12, somewhere around there. And I tell them that up until we're going to make October our goal, the end of October, you can go ahead and write in those letter names, that's fine. And if they need to. If they don't need to, they don't have to, but write them in if they need to. And lesson 4, we're going to go ahead and have the competition, note drill number 2, and we're going to review 1 through 11 again. I always start right back at the beginning of the book and review up to where we got to, and then we're going to go on and we're going to play 12, 14, 16, and 17. We have songs there that don't have notes written in. They're going to learn in number 14, which they're going to enjoy. And then you're going to need to teach them half notes for 16 and 17. And you'll probably even get to the point in that lesson, in lesson 4, that you can teach them an A. You can show them what that looks like on the staff, and you can show them what it looks like to play it, and demonstrate number 31 in the book. Some of you really, you clarinet players or you experienced teachers probably just noticed I did something wrong, and I didn't even realize it until after I played it. I was doing this. Your kids are going to do that too. Your kids are going to grab a hold of it down here, or they're going to do it like this, like I said earlier, or they're just going to put their fingers underneath it. And I did that, which is awful. So make sure that you're always watching that and making sure that their fingers are above these holes right here. They're going to need that later on in the year. You don't want to start any bad habits, so make sure, even though they're not using it, that their hand's right there. So you've demonstrated that. Some outstanding kid's going to go home and they're going to try that, and they're going to be able to do it by the next lesson, which is awesome. And in the final lesson we have another competition, and then we're going to teach them how to swab out the instrument. When you swab these, of course you run your swab through the entire clarinet. I've got a really, really long set of needle nose pliers. I want to see if I can find them real quick. All my tools are under my desk here. Oh, that's in another spot. They're like that long. And they're really, really skinny. Somebody's going to get this thing stuck in their clarinet. And then you gotta be able to reach down in there with those and just pull it out. The thing I want you to be careful of, though, is the mouthpiece. When they go to swab out the mouthpiece, they even make littler swabs if you can get a hold of one of those. But have them go down from this end first, all right, and pull it through that way. The reason for that is, if they were to somehow get it to where they had it like this, and they were pulling through, you got this weight here at the end, and what's going to happen is, I've seen this happen before, you're going to jerk it really hard, the weight's going to hit the end of the mouthpiece, and you're going to shatter the end of the mouthpiece. So you never want to go that direction. You want to go down from here first. Just be sure that you don't shatter the end of the mouthpiece. That's the clarinet lessons.